Good morning, Louis. How you doing?
Morning, Andrew. I'm very well. I'm glad you've come back for more. Didn't put you off with the first one, so thanks for coming back.
It's okay. Educate me about immigration law. I find it incredibly complicated, even as a lawyer who does lots of areas of law. Immigration blows my mind in its complexity, and I also think it should be really quite simple for people navigating it, and it just isn't. So educate me. And today you educated me about, I think, was it the skilled worker route for for an employer sponsoring a worker from abroad that wants to come here. Is that right?
That's right. Yes.
Wow, I understood the concept. Good. Tell me all about it in simple terms and don't be, no jargon, please. Otherwise, you'll lose me.
Okay. So this is everyone in the immigration world has been getting very excited, because we're geeky in that way. So major changes coming up. So we're in November now. So next month, big changes to the system of sponsorship. So this is the way that UK employers can hire right now individuals from outside the EU. Okay, but the kind of big news is that free movement is ending at the end of this year. So whilst at the moment, if you want to hire someone from the EU, so bring over a French national, they just walk in with a passport and start employment. Very easy. Unfortunately, due to Brexit, this is all changing. So EU nationals are going to have to be sponsored just like non-EU nationals are already.
Okay.
So this is the kind of background to the big changes, which I can talk about.
That is a big deal, then, isn't it? Because I imagine primarily the sort of foreign workers in the UK now are EU nationals. Yeah. So and just walk in, wave a passport, off you go and work. Then it's going to be much more convoluted process for everybody. I mean, and this is all entirely set because obviously Brexit hasn't happened yet. Brexit proper hasn't. We're still in the transition period. Are the rules absolutely coming in on that 1st of December? I didn't realise they were set stuff. So I keep getting letters as a business owner saying, "Get ready for Brexit," but people saying, "Well, there's no deal agreed. So how could we know what the rules are?" But you're saying immigration's entirely set and will change on the 1st of December.
Yeah.
Wow. How did I didn't know that. This is the first time I've been made aware of that.
just as well we're doing this series then. So obviously the Brexit kind of end of free movement and everything else is at the end of the year, but the Home Office for some reason brought out these big changes to the sponsorship system on the 1st of December. So there's a slight date mismatch there, if you like. But yeah, they're pretty big changes, and I guess it is. I guess in very simple terms, it's bad news if you're an EU national, or if you're an employer looking to employ an EU national. But it's good news if you're looking to employ someone from outside of the EU. So there are a lot of changes happening, a kind of trade-off, if you like. So we lose free movement, but there's lots of so-called kind of liberalizing measures to make it easier to recruit from outside the EU. Does that make sense?
It does, but anywhere, not so EU, is there like our sort of former British colonies prioritised over, say, South America?
No, there's no. I mean, apart from Hong Kong, which has its own special visa now. Generally speaking, there's no preferential treatment for Commonwealth citizens over non-Commonwealth, and so it's a strange system in that sense. And it'll take a bit of getting used to that. There's no preferential treatment for a French national over someone from Azerbaijan. No offense to Azerbaijanis, but there's no preferential treatment.
I think they're called Azeris, I think, but don't worry.
Thank you. That's right.
So what are the costs? Because surely an employer then is going to get saddled with massive costs now in this new world. I mean, maybe they always were for non-EU nationals, but are the costs going up? And who can you bring in? Do they have to have a particular skill set or earn money? Tell me about how you can bring somebody in.
Okay, yeah, good questions. So the costs, that's fairly straightforward. It's for the license itself, it's £536 if you're a small business or charity, and I think it's 1,400 something if you're a medium large. But that's just to get the license. To sponsor an individual's about £200, and then if you're sponsoring someone normally from outside who's not already living in the UK, you are paying £364 per year or £1,000 per year, depending on whether you're a small or a medium or large business. So there are significant costs. That last charge I said is called the immigration skills charge, and it's just a levy, just because it's not really clear why they're charging that. It's not an NHS fee. That's a separate fee charged to the individual, the immigrant who's applying to come here. So there are, unfortunately, these costs, which I think is going to come as a bit of a shock to employers who are used to having a free supply, free in that sense, supply of labour from the EU.
Okay, yeah, there's some massive charges there. I can see that.
Yeah. In terms of, I mean, some of the kind of, the more positive news, if you like. So those charges have always been there. They've not gone up. But it's becoming generally easier to sponsor under this system than it was. So one of the really annoying features that the old system has is you had to show that you could not recruit a settled worker, which kind of means a British person or someone with indefinite leave to remain. So you had to go through what was sometimes, to be frank, a bit of a charade in advertising in various places for 28 days, and only then could you hire the person you actually wanted to hire from overseas. That's being abolished. The general, under the old system, it was only degree level jobs that could be sponsored. So, doctors, teachers, business development managers, techie kind of positions. That's being lowered to jobs that are recognised at A level. So there's quite a considerable expansion in the types of jobs that can be sponsored. So like chefs can now be sponsored, to give one slightly random example. So, and the other significant change is that under the old system, there's a limit on how many people can be sponsored per month. That's being suspended. So there's no limit on how many people can be brought in at a kind of macro level, if you like.
So the political narrative was always one of Brexit means that we can control our borders and we're going to reduce the number of people moving in. But actually, if you drill down into it, I suppose what you're saying is it's sort of, outside the European Union, far easier to bring people in. And if you want them, more or less, you can get them. And an A level isn't going to be that much of a barrier or type role as well. Okay, well, that's very interesting. And again, that's something I didn't know. Are there any particular countries that, in your experience, employers are looking to? Is it, I don't know, in India, perhaps? I don't know. Do tell.
I mean, India is generalizing a bit here, but there seems to be a steady stream of highly skilled tech workers, often from India, that coming over. I have a kind of slightly niche area in assisting restaurants with chefs and highly skilled chefs. So that can be from various countries and kind of subcontinent. But yeah, no, it's interesting because at the moment, I think 2/3 of migration is from outside of the EU. So it used to be more like 50-50, but that's changed with fewer EU nationals coming here. Overall numbers are increasing, so there's far more non-EU nationals coming here. So like you said, it's interesting that Brexit's been kind of founded on I think, largely on a numbers game, decreasing overall numbers, yet what these changes are doing are really opening or making it far easier for non-EU nationals to come here. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because I suspect it might not be the effect which some of the Brexiteers wanted.
Yeah, it does sound more global Brittany than I thought it was going to be. Well, that's good news. So what should employers be doing now? Should they, if they're outside the European Union, I suppose they need to wait till the 1st. It's more favourable. If it's before the 1st of December, got 6 days or so, they've got to get their applications in quickly. Probably too late to do so. Is there any need for putting job adverts out now to as a charade? I don't encourage that, but what should employers be doing, Louis?
Good question. I mean, there's a kind of a pretty good case for saying you should be getting a license in place now, even if you don't have an individual you want to sponsor, because what happens in a year's time when you want to hire Joe Blogs from Spain or wherever, you then have to go through the bureaucracy and hassle of getting a license, which could take quite a long time. So, and certainly the Home Office is encouraging businesses to get a license in preparation for all these changes. On that advertising issue, this is quite a specific area which could get the klaxon alert for being too technical. But although the resident labour market test, the thing we had to advertise to British workers, was annoying, but you kind of knew where you stood. You had to do this annoying recruitment exercise, be able to evidence it clearly, and then you could get your man or woman. Now what they're saying is, well, we're abolishing that, but you still have to show the position you want to sponsor is, quote, genuine, that it's not been manufactured. And we don't know how you really prove that apart from running a recruitment exercise to show that you couldn't fill it. Long story short, there's still quite a strong argument for actually recruiting for the position amongst the settled workforce as a means to showing it's a genuine position, that you're not using it as a kind of backdoor route to try and bring someone over just to kind of get them into the country. If that sounds like I'm being paranoid, this is unfortunately the Home Office have reduced me to that, because they do refuse license applications if they don't think the vacancy is genuine, or if they think there's anything vaguely funny going on.
And do they search social media, LinkedIn, to check out? How do they go about their searches?
So there's a famous, in the geek immigration world, there's a famous case. There used to be a restriction on restaurants, weird restrictions that said if they ran a takeaway function, they couldn't have a sponsor license. That was before Deliveroo and, but before the real world. In the real world, everywhere has a takeaway function now. So they realized they just knocked out every restaurant from ever having a sponsor license. But anyway, someone applied for this license, and the Home Office checked the Facebook pages and noticed some vague reference to a delivery service. So they refused the license application on that basis. So they can route around. Don't think they normally do that, but they can do that.
And with employers, do they have to pay an employee a particular sum? I know you said it was A-level standard, but could it be minimum wage? Does it have to be £100,000 a year job? Are there any barriers on?
Yes, there is. So the minimum salary levels are coming down. So that's another good news story if you're an employer. There's a general minimum salary threshold for most people, which is 25,600. But there is also a specific minimum salary threshold for each job. So for a CEO, I'm picking the numbers out, making these up, it could be 40 grand. For a chef, they would know, it's called a going rate. So you have to pay them the going rate or that minimum level of 25,600. So for a CEO, you'd probably have to pay them 40 grand-ish. For a chef, their going rate is 20 grand, I think. So you would have to pay them 25,600, which is the minimum salary threshold. There's a bit more to it, but it can get quite technical. So, but that's the basic position.
Gotcha. Are you in the immigration world, your immigration nerdy world? Are you expecting many more changes to come in? For example, with furlough guidance, I know that was less time to prep for it and so on, but there were multiple versions of furlough guidance, almost sometimes coming out per day. And I don't know, any variations of it. But with the Home Office, are they often pumping out new guidance that changes every week, or what's your anticipation, particularly with Brexit?
Yeah, I mean, the Home Office has been bringing out regular guidance around coronavirus and for immigration generally. There's been a bit of stuff around concessions to say that if the person's on furlough, their salary, if it's 80%, will be treated as if it's 100% for the purposes of sponsorship. So there has been they've been not too bad around that, to be fair, given what they quite often are like. So they've been a bit more reasonable there. But no doubt there will be changes. The cap on how many people can come here, that's not been abolished, it's been suspended. So watch this space to see whether that kicks in the future. my view is that this could be it's a bit of a cruel thing to say because EU nationals are clearly the losers here, but in terms of non-EU nationals, it might be a bit of a golden era now in terms of the ease with which employers can bring over certainly non-EU nationals.
Very interesting. Okay. And that's not commonly known, I don't think, outside in the
No.
real world.
No. I think if you step back, so I've been doing immigration since 2008, but I've been speaking with other very experienced practitioners who've been doing it since kind of early 90s, and what they will say is that these things just go in cycles. So there'll be a liberalizing moment like that where everything gets relaxed, notwithstanding free movement going. So I know that's a bit of a complicating factor, but for everyone else, it's getting relaxed. It all seems, oh, we've got a decent system now. Then something will happen in the news. There'll be some scandal, and they start introducing more and more restrictions. So within 5 years, 6 years, it'll be really tight again, unworkable, and then they'll liberalize it again. And 10 years from now, that seems to be what happens. So we're in a kind of relative liberalized moment in time.
Understood. And how quickly is this process for employers as well? If they found the right candidate and pay from when they pay their fees or licenses and so on to bring in somebody in, how quickly can that move?
Yeah, that's an important consideration. So if you've got a kind of straightforward application, you'd be hoping to get the license through in about 5 weeks. But then if you're employing someone from overseas, you then have to make a separate application to get something called a certificate of sponsorship for that individual. That could take another month or so. You then assign that certificate to the individual who applies for his or her visa. So 3 months, maybe. There's one kind of caveat that if you get inspected, so the Home Office will inspect the employer, and you can expect to be inspected at some point. If you get inspected before they're willing to grant a license, that would be a considerable delay. That'll add on, 2, 3, 4 months onto the whole process.
Gotcha. Thank you, Louis. You have made me tired with the detail, but
so mission has been accomplished then. Good.
Something like that. Is there anything else that people watching this video would want to know about this changing building area law?
Okay, there's a lot more to say, which I'm not gonna go to the detail now, but I have a very detailed legal guide on the Tier 2 system, which is the system before it became skilled worker. I'm in the middle of writing an extremely detailed legal guide, so do watch this space. The legal guide is really meant to be condensing years of practical experience into this guide. So if you want to either learn more about it or even just do the application yourself, do it all yourself, do check out my guide.
Super. Thank you very much, Louis. Understood.
Right, cheers, Andrew. Bye for now.
See you soon. Bye. Bye.